Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video discussion thingy jiggy. Remember, if you like videos, like, subs to the comments here. Support the channel, super chat, PayPal, super like, super thanks, whatever the fuck it's called. Today, I want to talk about the difference between the idea of, say, something like a comeback mechanic and actually rewarding the player for losing and punishing the player for winning. So, we're going to watch a few matches, or just a few clips of matches, and then we'll get into like the nitty gritty. And I'll also try to play devil's advocate a little bit here. So we got this match right here, Dawson versus Ryu. Obviously, Dawson versus Ryu, a bad matchup for Ryu. Hmm. Where was the comeback mechanic there, do you think? Even though, like, and you can watch the whole match. I mean, like I said, they're enjoyable matches to watch. Another example of a comeback match right here. Ryu gets the reversal. Look at that. Where was the comeback mechanic there? And we'll watch this. Now, I think you would see that there actually is no comeback mechanic in those, right? Now, I guess you would say devil's advocate for having comeback mechanics in games. If you were to argue something like this, or what you just saw, you would say, well, Clayton, in old school video games, you died so fast. These games were so volatile that you wouldn't need a comeback mechanic per se, because in newer games, because simple things, let's say quotation marks, don't have such an influence on the match, because it takes, let's say, quotation marks, longer to kill the guy, and it's not as volatile, you actually need this sort of set in stone comeback mechanic, because you can't just kill a guy like you could in old school Street Fighter. I mean, if we're looking at, examples of these Super Turbo matches, no super was part of the comeback mechanic there. I mean, he could have killed even without the super there, you know what I mean? The character themselves were the comeback mechanic. The fact that, we have these characters like Sagat zoning Balrog, you know what I mean? Dhalsim zoning Ryu, you know what I mean? The mistake is what happened with the comeback, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, they started to make some mistakes, so the other character could come back. The character's comeback was already integral to the character, I guess you could say, you know what I mean? They didn't need to rely on a actual comeback mechanic. And so hopefully you get what I'm getting at, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. You don't need comeback mechanics if the game is designed correctly. You don't need a comeback mechanic if the game takes execution. Choi missed his reversal versus Balrog, so guess what? That was the comeback mechanic. He made a mistake, right? There was no holding your hand. And now that I go into my awesome paint skills, when we talk about comeback mechanics and actually being rewarded for losing, so let's look at, say, maybe a new school idea of a game, right? Let's say it's a pretty known theory that, you know, when your guy's about to die, we have these things like, what is it called? Rage and Tekken, whatever it is, something like that. Or, say an SNK game where your guy is about to die, so they're flashing, so they're more powerful, they can do supers. But let's look at this like at a very sort of basic idea and take with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's not 100% true, but take with a grain of salt, just like even the little theory of it is kind of dumb. And it goes from being a comeback mechanic into actually rewarding the guy for losing, which is bad, right? So say we have this, we're about to die. Say we've been hit 3 times, right? 3 combos, whatever it is, and we're flashing. Now we're in our extra powerful mode. Let's say before we got to this extra powerful mode, let's say that I had hit this other guy 1 time. So this is where his power bar is, right? Well, guess what? Now because I'm flashing, even though this guy, player 2, let's say, has to hit me 4 times to kill me, I only have to, let's say, hit him 2 times to kill him, right? Let's say he was perfecting me. he hit me 3 times, 3 combos, whatever, just take with a grain of salt. Again, not 100%, you know what I mean? But I'm trying just to get like the basic sort of like theory of why an actual comeback mechanic is not good, right? Let's say you're perfecting the guy, right? Well, guess he's hit you 3 times, so now you're flashing. Well, guess what? When you're in this thing, you only have to hit him twice. And because you only have to hit him twice, maybe he doesn't even get a chance to use his comeback mechanic. Do you see what I'm getting at? Let's say you hit him once. Well, guess what? You only have to hit him twice now because your comeback mechanic is going to do this, and he doesn't even get a chance to use his comeback mechanic. And I think, again, it's kind of, take that with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? Because obviously it's not, 100%, but I think you can see why an actual comeback mechanic put into the game is kind of stupid, right? Because it actually leads to these, which again is not 100%, but it leads to these theoretical situations where you are literally punished for winning and you are rewarded for losing, right? Now, this isn't to say that there's, say, no comeback mechanics in, say, old school Street Fighter, because even a game like Super Turbo, and I think it's up to Alpha 2, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure the exact algorithms or the exact data for it. I don't know if it exists in Alpha 3, but, a lot of these games, if you lose the first round, like, old school Street Fighter has sort of like a bit of a random factor to it, right? Like if you lose the first round, and I think it goes if whatever round that you lose, excuse me, the next round, the random factor then goes in your favor a little bit. And I don't know exactly what it is in Street Fighter, but I mean, I'm sure we all know there's random damage in general. But then if you lose, the random factor goes a little bit more. And even when I made that Alpha 1 video where I showed the Ken does a Dragon Punch that does half-life, if that happens if you have lost the first round, your random factor, and I think there's like 3 or 4 values. Again, I'm not a frame data nerd, so it's stupid that I know some of this stuff. I'm a little bit vague, but I think there's 4 different values. Maybe it's 3 or 4 different values. And you can get the potential best value if you have lost the first round, right? And so I think I had to reset the match a few times to get that value, but then eventually I was getting the value where I could get half-life Dragon Punches in Alpha 1, right? Because I had lost the first round. And, that stuff, again, exists in old school Street Fighter as well. And it exists even in Alpha 2. Again, I'm not sure exactly to what extent it exists in Alpha 2, but I'm pretty sure there exists something with a random factor there. So there is a bit of a reward for losing, even in games like that, you could say. But to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, it does then exist for then the guy if he loses that round then, right? So it tries to balance it out. But not saying I'm a fan of that, but just, kind of, even the playing field, so to speak. But I think you can see, though, from just this first example, that this is inherently flawed, because there are definite times, again, that you can see that this isn't a comeback mechanic anymore per se. You're literally being rewarded for losing, right? But I think you can see as well, again, and I know I'm going over because I'm all over the place as usual, but even if we watch those Super Turbo matches, we can see the comeback mechanic. The characters already have the comeback mechanic. The characters didn't even have to use the super to use the comeback mechanic. You could say that the comeback mechanic, if we're even thinking about a video game, and again, Super Turbo is a game where you don't even have to use supers. You don't have to, right? Because the non-super version of the character, which is the super version, I guess, now we're getting confusing, is still competitive, right? But you could even think about it from a perspective, I have a super, you have a super, right? Now, my super, instead of calling it a comeback mechanic, we could just say it's a resource, right? Maybe I want to use my resource offensively, at the beginning. Well, guess what? Then I'm not going to have it as that potential comeback mechanic, right? You know what I mean? So I think in those kind of situations, you could get a little bit, deeper into it. But anyway, so the point is, I think if a game is well designed, I don't think you need an actual comeback mechanic as some of these, like where you're getting rewarded for getting beat up, so to speak, I guess. Right. And again, I know to play devil's advocate, the argument would be, well, Clayton, you're showing a game, an old school game where it is so volatile and you die so fast. So, of course, those games can't have a true comeback mechanic because you already can kill the guy with just a simple mistake, right? Now, new school games, it takes longer to kill the guy, right? So you need, if you want a comeback mechanic, it has to be a literal comeback mechanic because you can't do that much damage in the first place. If you play a new school game, you know what I mean? If you play a new school game, games are so easy going, right? We saw that Choi example where he missed the reversal, right? Now, if we were to play a new school game, let's say where it takes 3 times as many combos to kill the guy, you know, you would not expect a guy to miss 3 reversals in a row in a new school game because it's so easy, right? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of getting like, whoa, what? There's an what kind of what's going on here, right? And to finish up this video, I've said before, if you've ever watched my videos, when I've talked about how I would change Street Fighter, and I've talked about how I've thought of maybe having a comeback mechanic, but how could you put in a comeback mechanic in Street Fighter without making it an actual comeback mechanic, like rewarded for losing? And again, just to put it in here, I've talked about, you know, keep your supers, right? And then keep a versatile bar up here, right? We have these like 3 little bars right here. And you start off with these 3 little bars, right? And if you lose a round, you can get a little notch, and you lose another round, you can get another notch if you've never used these bars, right? And those 3 little circles up to 5, you know, because if you lose the first round, then if you finally go to that 3rd round and for some reason you didn't use any of this, this is your sort of versatile meter, right? This is what you do EX moves with, which not everyone has an EX move for every move. It's a versatile move, right? This is what you would do for like delayed get up or something, like if you want to use it like this. This is what you would use for, you know, a rolling attack. You know, if there's a Street Fighter Alpha roll, this is what would be your alpha counter. And the idea for that is because you keep supers, and you keep this versatile meter here. Oh, and this would be if you want to do a super cancel special to super or a CVS2 super to super kind of thing, where you know what I mean? This is your versatile bar. And it's very versatile. But the caveat I said to it, and part of me thinks that it might be too anime kind of gamey, you know what I mean? But at the same time, one of the only new things you can do in a fighting game is the meters. So maybe I would try to make it work in a Street Fighter game. But I've said the caveat to making this perhaps a comeback mechanic is because I've said if I was making Street Fighter, I would put in, that's not good English. I would reasonably assume there's going to be a lot of dizzy combos. I would put in volatile, powerful combos if you fuck something up, right? And so the idea for that would be, if you're losing, man, you get hit by a dizzy combo, then you get hit by another combo, you got just this little bit of life left. But the thing for that would be, if you have these bars or these meters, maybe not until you're down, not until you've actually lose one of your bars, does this little guard meter pop up. And maybe all the block damage you take is gray damage until then, right? Or maybe you can't kill. Like I said, how I would change the block damage in Street Fighter V. Maybe I would put in that little Street Fighter V thing, that little theory I said for the, you can't get killed by chip damage if you have 3 EX bars, right? And that would be the comeback mechanic of my game. If I said, because that would be another versatile usages for keeping this, right? Because I've talked about how I would expect that, again, man, some characters, they might be able to blow you up. They jump right at the beginning of the round. Guess what? They might literally just blow your guy up. You're going to get hit by a dizzy combo if I was making Street Fighter. But the one caveat to that would be, if they've done that, and because it's the very first round, you didn't even get a chance to use your EX bar, your versatile bar. Well, guess what? Then your guard meter hasn't popped up yet, and you can't be killed by chip damage yet. That is my idea for a comeback mechanic, because it's tied with your meter. It's sort of tied in, right? And so you can lose a round, right? And then, if you haven't used any bars, then that would fill up. And if for some reason you still won the next round, you haven't filled up, well, now you got 5 EX bars, so whatever. But that would be my idea if I was to put in a comeback mechanic. excuse me, for a Street Fighter game. Anyway, remember if you liked videos, like, some silly comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.